The cantina on Nexus Prime was dark and smoky. Strange creatures from dozens of worlds sat at metal tables, drinking and talking in low voices. In the corner booth, a figure waited in the shadows. Zektar was not like the other aliens in the bar. His kind, the Shadow Clan, were born killers. His skin was dark gray, like old metal, and his eyes glowed red in the dim light. 4 arms moved with deadly grace, each one strong enough to crush bone. He had been killing for 300 years, and he had never failed a mission. A small robot rolled up to his table. Its screen showed a face that Zektar knew well. Crime. Boss Vexron appeared on the display, his snake-like features twisted in anger. "I have a job for you," Vexron said through the robot. "The biggest payment I have ever offered." Zektar's red eyes focused on the screen. "Tell me." "A human has destroyed my operation on New Terra. He saw things he should not have seen. He knows about my weapons deals with the rebel groups. If word gets out, I will lose billions of credits." The assassin leaned forward. "One human? You need me for one small human? This human is different. His name is Jake Miller. He flies cargo ships between the outer colonies. But he used to be a soldier. He fought in the big war on Titan years ago." Zektar made a sound like grinding metal. It was his version of laughter. "A cargo pilot, an old soldier. You insult me with such easy work." "The payment is 50 million credits," Vexron said quickly. The laughter stopped. 50 million was more than most planets made in a year. Even for Zektar, it was a huge amount of money. "Show me his file," the assassin said. The robot's screen changed. A picture appeared of a human male with brown hair and tired eyes. He looked ordinary, like 1,000 other humans that worked the space lanes. Nothing special about him at all. "Jake Miller," Vexron's voice continued. "Age 35, former military engineer. Lives alone on his cargo ship called Lucky Strike. No family, no close friends. He should be easy to kill." Zektar studied the human's face. Jake Miller looked like he had seen hard times. His skin was weathered from years in space. There were lines around his eyes that spoke of worry and stress. But there was something else there, too. Something that made Zektar pause. The human's eyes were alert. They were the eyes of someone who noticed things. Someone who thought before he acted. "Where is he now?" Zektar asked. "His ship left New Terra 3 days ago. Our spies say he is heading for the Vortex Nebula region. He has cargo runs scheduled there." Zektar nodded. The Vortex Nebula was dangerous. Space. Most pilots avoided it because of the energy storms that could tear ships apart. But it was also a perfect place for a hunter to corner his prey. "I will take the job," Zektar said. "But I want half the money now." "Done," Vexron replied. "Just make sure this human dies quickly. I cannot afford to have him talking to anyone." The robot rolled away, leaving Zektar alone with his thoughts. He finished his drink and stood up. His 4 arms moved like liquid as he adjusted his weapons. 3 energy blasters hung from his belt, along with a dozen different knives. Each weapon had killed dozens of beings across the galaxy. Zektar walked through the cantina toward the exit. Other aliens moved out of his way without being asked. They all knew who he was. The Shadow Clan assassin who never failed. The killer who had ended the lives of presidents and crime lords. Even a few gods from primitive worlds had fallen to. His weapons. Outside the cantina, the night air of Nexus Prime was thick with chemical smells from the factories. Zektar's ship waited in the spaceport, a sleek black vessel called Whisper of Death. It was built for killing, with the best weapons and stealth technology that money could buy. As he walked toward his ship, Zektar thought about the human, Jake. Miller would be another easy kill. Humans were weak creatures, soft and slow, compared to most aliens. They had only been in space for a few decades. What could one aging cargo pilot do against a professional killer? Zektar's red eyes glowed brighter. As he smiled, this job would be finished in a few days. The human would die, and Zektar would be 50 million credits richer. He climbed into his ship and started the engines. The computer showed him Jake Miller's last known position. The human was 3 star systems away, moving slowly in his old cargo hauler. Computer, set course for the Vortex Nebula, Zektar commanded, and activate the stealth systems. I want to get close to this human without him knowing. The ship lifted off from Nexus Prime and jumped into hyperspace. Zektar settled into his pilot's chair and began to plan. He would follow the human's ship at a distance, learn his patterns, and then strike when the moment was right. It would be another perfect kill, just like all the others. But in the hyperspace tunnel between the stars, Jake Miller was also making plans. His cargo ship's sensors had picked up something strange during his last jump, a shadow that followed just at the edge of detection, something that was trying very hard not to be seen. Jake's military training kicked in as he studied the sensor readings. After 20 years of flying cargo ships, he knew what normal space traffic looked like. This was not normal. Someone was hunting him. Jake's hands moved over his ship's controls as he began to think like a soldier again. He had survived the war on Titan by being smart, not brave. He had learned to spot danger before it spotted him. Now that skill might keep him alive again. The chase was about to begin, but Jake Miller was not going to be easy prey. The old soldier was still there, hidden inside the cargo pilot, and he was already planning to fight back. Jake Miller stared at his ship's sensor screen for the 10th time in an hour. The strange shadow was still there, following him through hyperspace like a ghost. Most pilots would have missed it completely, but Jake's military background had taught him to look for things that did not belong. His cargo ship, Lucky Strike, was old but well-maintained. Jake had spent years upgrading her systems with military-grade equipment he bought on the black market. She might look like a simple freight hauler, but she had teeth if she needed them. Computer, run a deep scan on that contact, Jake said to his ship's eye. Unable to get a clear reading, the computer replied in its flat electronic voice. Contact is using advanced stealth technology. Estimated size suggests a small warship or heavy fighter. Jake's jaw tightened. Cargo pirates used fast ships, but they did not have stealth technology that good. This was something else. Something professional. He thought back to his last stop on New Terra. He had been picking up a routine cargo load when he saw something he should not have seen. Men in expensive suits loading weapons crates onto unmarked ships. When they spotted him watching, they had tried to look casual, but Jake knew military hardware when he saw it. Those had not been legal weapons dealers. Now someone was following him with a military-grade stealth ship. Jake did not believe in coincidences. He changed course toward the Vortex Nebula, a dangerous region of space that most pilots avoided. The energy storms there could fry a ship's electronics or tear the hull apart. But Jake had flown through the nebula before during his military days. He knew its secrets. If someone wanted to hunt him, he would make them work for it. 3 hours later, Jake's ship entered the outer edge of the nebula. Purple and blue energy danced across his view screen as electromagnetic storms raged through space. His sensors started showing false readings as the energy interfered with his equipment. Behind him, Zektar cursed in his alien language as his own sensors went wild. The nebula was making it harder to track his prey, but the assassin was not worried. He had hunted in worse conditions before. Clever human, Zektar said to himself. You think this nebula will hide you, but I have been killing since before your species learned to fly. The assassin's ship followed Jake deeper into the storm region. Both vessels had to reduce speed to navigate safely through the energy fields. One wrong move could destroy either. Ship.Jake used his knowledge of the nebula to his advantage. He knew which passages were safe and which ones were death traps. His pursuer had to follow his exact path or risk being torn apart by the storms. For the first time in centuries, Zeke-Tar found himself impressed by his prey. The human was not running blindly. He was thinking, planning, using the environment as a weapon. It was almost like hunting another predator instead of simple prey. The chase continued for 2 days. Jake led his pursuer through the worst parts of the nebula, past energy storms that could melt steel and gravity wells that could crush a ship flat. Several times, Zeke-Tar's vessel was damaged by the extreme conditions, forcing him to make quick repairs. This human knows what he is doing, Zeke-Tar admitted as he welded a cracked hull plate. He is more dangerous than he appears. On the 3rd day, Jake's ship finally cleared the nebula and jumped to hyperspace. His destination was Haven Station, a neutral trading post where all kinds of beings came to do business. More importantly, it was where his old friend Lisa Hayes worked. Haven Station hung in space like a metal flower, its docking arms extending in all directions. Ships from a dozen different worlds were attached to the station, trading goods and information. Jake guided Lucky Strike to a docking port and shut down his engines. He needed information about who was hunting him, and Lisa was the best intelligence. Officer he knew. Jake found Lisa in the station's security office, reviewing reports on her computer screen. She was a tall woman with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been his commanding officer during the Titan War, and Jake trusted her with his life. "Jake Miller," she said with a smile. "I should have known you would turn up here eventually. You look terrible." "Thanks, Lisa. You always know how to make a guy feel better." Jake sat down in the chair across from her desk. "I need your help." Her smile faded when she heard the serious tone in his voice. "What kind of trouble are you in?" "Someone is hunting me. Professional-grade stealth ship, military equipment. They have been following me for 4 days through the Vortex Nebula." Lisa's fingers moved across her keyboard, bringing up classified intelligence files. "Any idea who wants you dead?" "I saw something on New Terra that I should not have seen. Weapons dealers, probably working for one of the big crime families." "Weapons dealers do not usually hire assassins with military-grade ships," Lisa said, as she read through the files. "They use local thugs or pirates. This sounds like something bigger." She pulled up a list of recent killings across the sector. Jake's blood went cold as he read the names and locations. All of these people were killed in the last 6 months, Lisa explained. Government officials, crime bosses, even a few military officers. All of them died in different ways, but intelligence thinks it was the same killer. "Who?" Jake asked, though he was afraid of the answer. "Zeke-Tar of the Shadow Clan, the most expensive assassin in the galaxy. If someone hired him to kill you, they are not playing games." Jake stared at the screen. He had heard stories about Zeke-Tar during his military days. The alien who never failed a mission. The killer who had eliminated targets that entire armies could not touch. "How much does he charge?" Jake asked. His last confirmed kill was a rebel leader on Proxima 7. The client paid 30 million credits. Jake whistled softly. Someone was paying a fortune to see him dead. But why? What had he seen on New Terra that was worth that much money? "I need to know more about this Zeke-Tar," Jake said. "His methods, his weapons, his ship. Everything you have." Lisa looked worried. "Jake, you cannot fight an assassin like that. You should come with me. I can arrange protection. Maybe get you into a safe house." "No," Jake said firmly. "If I run, He will just keep hunting me, and eventually he will find me. I would rather face him on my terms than wait for him to choose the time and place." Lisa studied her old friend's face. She had seen that look before, during the war. It was the look Jake got when he decided to solve a problem instead of running from it. "You are planning something crazy, are not you?" she said. Jake smiled for the first time in days. "Probably. But I learned a few things during the war that might surprise our alien friend." Lisa transferred all of her files on Zektar to Jake's personal datapad. "Be careful, Jake. This is not like the war. You are not fighting soldiers who follow rules. Zektar is a monster." "Maybe," Jake replied as he stood up. "But he has never fought a human engineer who is tired of being hunted." As Jake walked back to his ship, he was already planning. Zektar might be the galaxy's deadliest assassin, but he had never faced human stubbornness before. Jake was not going to run anymore. It was time to turn the hunter into the hunted in space around Haven Station. Zektar's cloaked ship waited and watched. The assassin had seen his target dock at the station, and now he was planning his next move. He could attack the station directly, but that would bring unwanted attention from the security forces. Better to wait until the human left. Then he could finish this job properly. But as Zektar watched, he felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. This human was not acting like normal prey. He was not running in panic or begging for help. Jake Miller was planning something, and that made him dangerous. Jake spent 3 days at Haven Station preparing for war. He used his cargo credits to buy equipment that most freight pilots would never need. Mining charges, industrial cutting tools, and several tons of scrap metal went into Lucky Strikes. Cargo hold. To anyone watching, it looked like Jake was taking on a normal mining contract. But Jake had learned during the war that ordinary tools could become deadly weapons if you knew how to use them. He also bought information. Haven stations. Black market dealers sold data on ship movements, criminal activities, and most importantly, details about Zektar's previous kills. Jake studied every file, looking for patterns in how the assassin worked. Zektar always attacked when his target was alone and vulnerable. He used his ship's superior speed and weapons to end fights quickly. He never gave his victims a chance to fight back. Jake smiled grimly as he read the reports. Zektar had never fought someone who expected him to attack. On the 4th day, Jake left Haven Station and set course for the Sigma asteroid field. It was a dangerous region where miners worked alone, digging valuable metals from floating rocks. Ships disappeared there regularly, either from accidents or pirate attacks. It was the perfect place for an ambush. Zektar followed at a safe distance, his ship's stealth systems keeping him hidden. The assassin was pleased that his prey had chosen such an isolated location to die. No witnesses, no complications. The asteroid field stretched for millions of kilometers, filled with rocks ranging from pebbles to mountains. Jake guided his ship deep into the field, using his sensors to map the largest asteroids. He was looking for the perfect spot to make his stand. He found it near the field's center. A cluster of asteroids formed a natural maze, with narrow passages between massive rocks. Jake maneuvered Lucky Strike into the maze's heart and began his preparations. Working quickly, Jake used his ship's mining equipment to hollow out several asteroids. He filled the empty spaces with mining charges, turning innocent rocks into bombs. Then he scattered pieces of scrap metal throughout the area, creating a cloud of debris that would confuse sensors. Finally, Jake modified his ship's cargo containers. He filled them with air and programmed them to eject from his ship on command. To enemy sensors, they would look like escape pods or even small ships. It took him 8 hours to prepare his trap. When he was finished, the asteroid cluster had become a deadly maze where nothing was what it seemed. Then Jake waited. Zektar approached the asteroid field cautiously. His sensors showed Jake's ship sitting motionless in the center of the field, apparently making repairs. The assassin smiled with satisfaction. His prey had finally made a mistake. "Computer, prepare all weapons," Zektar commanded. "Target the human ship's engines first. I want him alive when I board his vessel." But as Zektar's ship entered the asteroid field, Jake was already moving. He fired his mining charges in sequence, turning 3 asteroids into expanding clouds of rock metal. The explosions lit up space like small stars. Zektar's ship was caught in the blast wave. His shields absorbed most of the damage, but the sudden attack surprised him. His prey was fighting back. "Impossible," Zektar snarled as he fought to control his ship. "Humans do not set traps." Jake's voice came over the communication system, calm and steady. "Hello, Zektar. I have been waiting for you." The assassin's red eyes widened in shock. His prey knew his name. More importantly, his prey had been expecting him. "You think you can hide from me in these rocks, human?" Zektar replied. "I have been killing since before your species learned to walk upright." "Maybe," Jake said, "but I bet you have never fought a human engineer before." Jake ejected his cargo containers, sending them spinning in different directions. To Zektar's sensors, it looked like Jake's ship was breaking apart. The assassin moved in for the kill, only to discover that the containers were decoys. Lucky. Strike emerged from behind a large asteroid, her hidden weapons blazing. Jake had mounted mining lasers on his ship's hull, turning his cargo hauler into a makeshift warship. The beams cut through space, forcing Zektar to dodge frantically. For the first time in 3 centuries, Zektar found himself on the defensive. His ship was faster and more heavily armed, but Jake's unconventional tactics kept catching him off guard. Jake used the asteroids like a 3-dimensional maze, appearing and disappearing among the rocks. His mining charges turned the entire field into a minefield. Every time Zektar thought he had a clear shot, another explosion forced him to change course. "You fight like a coward," Zektar broadcast as he chased Jake through the asteroid field. "Face me in open combat." "I fight like an engineer," Jake replied. "I use the tools I have to solve the problem in front of me." The battle raged for 2 hours. Zektar's superior weapons damaged Jake's ship several times, but Jake's knowledge of the field let him stay ahead of the assassin. Every time Zektar thought he had won, Jake would spring another trap. Finally, Jake led Zektar into the deepest part of his maze. The assassin followed eagerly, thinking his prey was finally cornered. But Jake had saved his biggest surprise for last. He had hollowed out the largest asteroid in the cluster and filled it with every mining charge he had left. When Zektar's ship passed close to the asteroid, Jake triggered the explosion. The blast was enormous, visible from the edge of the star system. The asteroid shattered into millions of pieces, creating a deadly storm of rock and fire. Zektar's ship was caught in the explosion's heart. When the fire cleared, Zektar's vessel was badly damaged. His shields were down, his weapons were offline, and his ship was venting atmosphere. For the first time in his long life, the galaxy's deadliest assassin was helpless. Jake's ship appeared through the debris, moving slowly toward the crippled vessel. His mining lasers were still active, aimed directly at Zektar's ship. "You should have stayed in your own part of the galaxy," Jake said over the communication system. But Zektar was not finished yet. Even wounded, he was still dangerous. His ship's emergency systems came online, and he managed to fire his escape pod before Jake could stop him. The pod streaked away from the battle, heading for a small moon at the edge of the system. Zektar would need time to repair his ship and plan his next move. As Jake watched the escape pod disappear, he knew the fight was not over. He had won this battle, but Zektar would be back. The assassin's pride would not let him accept defeat. From a human, Jake began salvaging what he could from the wreckage of his traps. He would need every advantage he could get for the next round of their fight. On the small moon, Zektar crawled out of his escape pod and looked up at the stars. His ship was destroyed, his weapons were gone, and his prey had escaped. In 3 centuries of killing, nothing like this had ever happened to him. The human had beaten him, not through superior strength or technology, but through cunning and preparation. Jake Miller had turned the asteroid field into a weapon and used it to destroy the galaxy's most feared assassin. For the first time in his long life, Zektar felt something he had never experienced before. He felt afraid, not afraid of death, but afraid of failure. Afraid that he might not be the perfect killer he had always believed himself to be. As he began the long walk toward the moon's abandoned mining station, Zektar began to understand that he was not hunting ordinary prey. Jake Miller was something new, something dangerous. Something that might actually be able to kill him. The hunt was far from over, but now Zektar was no longer sure who was the hunter and who was the prey. Zektar spent 5 days on the dead moon, repairing his damaged escape pod and planning his revenge. The mining station had been abandoned for years, but its workshop still had tools and spare parts. The assassin worked with desperate energy, his forearms moving constantly as he rebuilt his ship systems. But while he worked, Zektar's mind kept returning to the battle in the asteroid field. How had a simple human cargo pilot defeated him so completely? The human had predicted his moves, countered his tactics, and turned the environment into a weapon. It should have been impossible. Zektar activated the station's old computer system and began researching human military history. What he found disturbed him deeply. Humans had been fighting wars for thousands of years, developing tactics that no other species had ever imagined. They turned farming tools into weapons. They used their environment as an ally. They fought with a creativity that bordered on insanity. Most disturbing of all, they never surrendered, even when defeat seemed certain. Jake Miller, Zektar, said the name like a curse. What kind of species breeds such fighters? Meanwhile, Jake was conducting his own research. He had returned to Haven Station to repair his ship and gather more information about his pursuer. Lisa Hayes had found disturbing news in the intelligence files. Zektar is not working alone anymore, Lisa told Jake as they sat in her office. 3 other Shadow Clan assassins have entered this sector. It looks like you have made them angry. Jake studied the files on his datapad. The new arrivals were just as dangerous as Zektar, each one with a long list of successful kills. They were bringing better weapons and faster ships. They are hunting in a pack now, Jake said. That changes everything. Jake, you need to leave. 4 Shadow Clan assassins working together have never been defeated. They will tear this sector apart, looking for you. But Jake shook his head. If I run, they will just follow. And next time, they might hurt innocent people to get to me. I have to end this here. Jake spent the next week preparing for a different kind of war. He could not fight 4 assassins in direct combat, so he would have to use psychological warfare instead. He started by spreading rumors through the criminal networks. Word began to circulate that the galaxy's deadliest assassin had been beaten by a human cargo pilot. The story grew with each telling, becoming more embarrassing for Zektar with each version. Some stories said that Jake had destroyed Zektar's ship with mining equipment. Others claimed that the human had outsmarted the assassin so badly that Zektar had fled in terror. A few versions even suggested that Jake was hunting Zektar now. The rumors reached Zektar's employers, the crime families who had hired him. They began to question whether their money had been well spent. Whispers started that maybe the Shadow Clan assassins were not as invincible as they claimed. Zektar felt his reputation crumbling with each passing day. Worse, The other Shadow Clan assassins began to question his leadership. They had come to help him kill one human, but now they wondered if Zektar was still the deadly killer he once was. Jake's psychological attack went deeper than simple rumors. He began leaving messages for Zektar at various space stations, taunting the assassin with engineering puzzles and tactical challenges. One message was hidden in the computer system of a trading post where Zektar stopped for supplies. When the assassin accessed the station's data banks, Jake's voice came through the speakers. "Hello, Zektar. I know you are listening. I have been studying your previous kills, and I found some interesting patterns. You always attack the same way. You rely on fear and superior technology. But what happens when your prey is not afraid?" The message included detailed analysis of Zektar's methods, pointing out weaknesses that the assassin had never realized existed. It was clear that Jake had been studying him just as intensely as he had been studied. Another message waited at a fuel depot, where Zektar's team stopped to refuel their ships. This one was more personal, revealing that Jake knew about Zektar's past failures, his family history, even his personal fears. "You are afraid of being ordinary," Jake's voice said from the depot's communication system. "You built your entire identity around being the perfect killer. But I have proven that you can be beaten. What does that make you now?" The messages had their intended effect. Zektar became obsessed with catching Jake, making increasingly desperate decisions. He pushed his team harder, took greater risks, and began to make the kind of mistakes that had gotten other assassins killed. The other Shadow Clan members began to whisper among themselves. Their leader was losing his focus, becoming reckless. Some of them started to wonder if they should abandon the mission. Jake's final psychological attack was the most devastating. He hacked into the Shadow Clan's private communication network and broadcast a message to every assassin in the galaxy. "My name is Jake Miller," his voice said over the secret channel. "I am a human cargo pilot, and I have defeated Zektar of the Shadow Clan in single combat. Your greatest assassin ran from me like a frightened child. If any of you want to try where he failed, come and find me. I will be waiting." The message caused chaos in the assassin community. Some laughed at the idea of a human challenging the Shadow Clan. Others wondered if the message was real. A few began to think that maybe humans were more dangerous than anyone had realized. But for Zektar, the message was the final insult. His own kind were questioning his abilities. His reputation was in ruins. Crime bosses were canceling contracts because they no longer trusted him to complete his missions. The human had not just defeated him in battle. Jake Miller had destroyed everything that Zektar was. "Enough," Zektar snarled as he listened to his fellow assassins argue about the human's message. "We end this now. I know where the human will be." Zektar had finally figured out Jake's pattern. The human was not running randomly through space. He was moving towards something specific, following a route that would take him to the dead zone, a region of space avoided by most travelers. There were ancient ruins there, the remains of a space station built by a long-dead civilization. It was the perfect place for a final confrontation, isolated and dangerous. "He is leading us into a trap," one of the other assassins warned. "Of course he is," Zektar replied. "But we are walking into it anyway. This human thinks he can psychologically defeat the Shadow Clan. I will show him what real fear looks like." As the 4 assassin ships headed toward the dead zone, Zektar felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Doubt. The humans. Psychological warfare had been more effective than any weapon. Jake Miller had gotten inside his head, made him question everything he believed about himself. But doubt could be turned into rage, and rage could be turned into strength. When Zektar finally faced Jake Miller again, he would channel 3 centuries of killing experience into one perfect moment of vengeance. The human had won the psychological war, but the real battle was still to come. In the dead zone, Jake prepared for the fight of his life. He had 4 of the galaxy's deadliest assassins coming for him, and this time he could not rely on surprise or unconventional tactics. This time, he would have to prove that human determination could overcome any enemy, no matter how dangerous. The ancient space station hung in the dead zone like a metal skeleton against the stars. It had been built by the ancients, a race that had vanished from the galaxy millions of years ago. Now it was a tomb, filled with corridors that led nowhere, and rooms that served forgotten purposes. Jake Miller guided his ship, Lucky Strike, through the station's broken docking bay. He had spent 2 weeks preparing for this final battle, turning the ancient structure into the ultimate battlefield. Every corridor had been rigged with traps. Every room had become a potential weapon. The station's old systems still worked, powered by energy sources that human scientists did not understand. Jake had learned to control these systems, bending alien technology to serve his human purpose. 4 hours after Jake docked, Ziktar's team arrived. Their ships surrounded the station, cutting off all escape routes. The 4 Shadow Clan assassins had brought enough firepower to destroy a small planet. Ziktar's voice echoed through the station's communication system. "Jake Miller, you have led us a good chase, but it ends here. Come out and face your death with honor." Jake's reply came from speakers throughout the station. "Honor? You mean like the honor you showed when you tried to kill me while I was sleeping? Come and get me, Ziktar. I am waiting in the station's heart." The 4 assassins docked their ships and entered the station through different airlocks. They moved through the corridors like ghosts, their weapons ready, their senses alert for any sign of their prey. But Jake had spent weeks learning every secret of the ancient station. He watched them through hidden cameras, tracking their movements as they split up to search for him. The first assassin, Vexon, entered a chamber filled with floating crystals. He did not know that Jake had rigged the crystals to explode when disturbed. The blast sent crystal shards flying like bullets, cutting the assassin to pieces before he could scream. The second assassin, Mordek, found Jake's trail leading through a corridor lined with ancient machines. He followed eagerly, not realizing that the machines were weapons designed to defend the station. Jake activated them with a thought, and energy beams reduced Mordek to atoms. The third assassin, Kelvash, was more careful. She avoided the obvious traps and made her way toward the station's center through maintenance shafts. But Jake was ready for her too. He flooded the shafts with poisonous gas from the station's life support system. Kelvash died choking on air that burned her lungs. Now only Ziktar remained. The ancient assassin moved through the station like death itself, his 4 arms carrying weapons that could kill planets. He had seen his team die one by one, but he showed no emotion. He had been killing for 3 centuries, and death was an old friend. But inside, Ziktar felt something new. Fear was growing in his heart like a cancer. This human had killed 3 Shadow Clan assassins without facing them directly. Jake Miller was not just dangerous. He was something the galaxy had never seen before. Ziktar reached the station's central chamber, a vast room with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness. Ancient machines hung along the walls, their purpose lost to time. In the center of the room, Jake Miller waited. The human looked ordinary, standing there in his simple pilot's clothes. He carried no visible weapons, just a small device in his hand that looked like a ship's remote control. But Ziktar had learned not to trust appearances where this human was concerned. "So you finally came," Jake said calmly. "I was beginning to think you had lost your nerve." Ziktar's red eyes blazed with anger. "I am Ziktar of the Shadow Clan. I do not feel fear." "Really?" Jake smiled coldly. "Then why are your hands shaking?" Ziktar looked down and realized it was true. His four hands were trembling slightly, something that had never happened before in his long life of killing. "You are just a human," Zektar snarled, raising his weapons. "Weak, soft. Your species has only been in space for a few decades." "That is true," Jake agreed. "But we have been killing each other for thousands of years. We learned to turn everything into a weapon. Tools, rocks, even our own environment. We are very good at it." Zektar fired all of his weapons at once. Energy beams and projectiles filled the air where Jake had been standing. But the human had already moved, diving behind one of the ancient machines. "You missed," Jake called out. "A professional assassin. Who misses his target? What would your employers say?" Zektar snarled and moved forward, hunting his prey through the maze of ancient equipment. But every time he thought he had Jake cornered, the human would disappear through a hidden passage or behind a machine that Zektar had not noticed. Jake was using the chamber like a three-dimensional puzzle, staying one step ahead of the assassin's weapons. He had spent weeks learning every corner of this room, every hiding place, every escape route. "Stand still and fight me." Zektar roared as his shots continued to miss. "Why?" Jake replied from somewhere in the darkness above. "You are the one, with superior weapons and technology. If you cannot hit me, maybe you're not as good as you think." The words hit Zektar harder than any weapon could have. His reputation, his pride, his entire identity was built on being the perfect killer. But this human was making him look like an amateur. Zektar's rage finally overcame his training. He charged forward recklessly, firing wildly at shadows and sounds. His disciplined approach dissolved into desperate fury. Jake had been waiting for this moment. He pressed a button on his remote control, and the ancient machines around the chamber came to life. The ancients had built their station with defenses that modern weapons could not match. Energy fields erupted from the floor and walls, creating a deadly maze of crackling power. Ancient weapons emerged from hidden panels, their targeting systems locking on to anything that moved aggressively. Zektar found himself trapped in a storm of alien technology. He dodged and weaved, but the ancient defenses were designed to stop invaders far more advanced than he was. Energy beams burned through his armor, and gravity fields crushed his weapons. "Impossible," Zektar gasped as he fell to his knees. "How? Did you learn to control ancient technology?" Jake stepped out from behind a machine, still holding his remote control. "I spent 2 weeks studying this station. Humans are good at figuring out how things work, even alien things. It is what we do." Zektar tried to raise his remaining weapon, but his strength was failing. The ancient defenses had left him broken and dying. "You cannot kill me," he whispered. "I am Zektar. I am death itself." "No," Jake said quietly. "You are just a killer who met someone smarter than you." Jake pressed another button on his remote. The ancient weapons powered down, but Zektar was already finished. The galaxy's deadliest assassin died on the floor of an alien ruin, killed by technology he could not understand, and a human he had underestimated. Jake stood over the body for a long moment, feeling no satisfaction in his victory. He had not wanted to become a killer, but Zektar had given him no choice. He activated his ship's communication system and sent a message to every major criminal organization in the galaxy. The message was simple. Jake Miller had killed Zektar and his entire team. Any other assassins who came for him would meet the same fate. The message spread through the criminal underworld like wildfire. Within days, every crime boss, pirate captain, and hired killer in the galaxy had heard the story. The human who had defeated the Shadow Clan's finest. Some laughed at the story. Others wondered if it was true. But a few began to realize something. That would change the galaxy forever. Humans were not the weak, primitive species that everyone had believed them to be. Jake Miller returned to his cargo runs, but he was no longer an ordinary pilot. Word of his victory followed him wherever he went. Pirates gave him a wide berth, and criminal organizations marked human space as dangerous territory. The galaxy had learned a new lesson about humanity. They might not be the strongest or the fastest species among the stars, but they were something else. Something that turned ordinary tools into weapons, that used their environment as an ally, that never surrendered no matter how hopeless things seemed. They were survivors who had learned to thrive by adapting to any challenge. And now the galaxy knew that humanity was not prey. They were predators who looked like prey until it was too late. Jake Miller had become a legend, but more importantly, he had changed how the galaxy saw his entire species. Humans were no longer seen as harmless newcomers to be ignored or exploited. They were seen as something far more dangerous. A species that could turn anyone, even the galaxy's deadliest assassin, into prey. The age of underestimating humanity was over, and it had ended with the terrified screams of Zektar echoing through an ancient alien tomb.